Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us today. That dorm room that you saw there in the campaign is where the Dell story began. And at the time I was 18 years old, I was taking apart IBM PCs and sort of struck by the fact that the components inside the IBM PC cost about 4 to 5 times less than they were selling the product for. And that didn't really seem fair to me. I thought there had to be a better way to do that. So with $1,000 in my dorm room at Dobie, not too far from here, about 15 or so blocks to the north, I dropped out of school and started our company. And in the first 8 years, we grew 80% per year. In the 6 years after that, we grew 60% per year. And it was all part of a massive tidal wave of growth in the microprocessor age. And 30 years later, we can look at that whole microprocessor age and see that there's been enormous societal change that's occurred in the world. During the period from 1985 to 2005, the number of people in the world living in poverty has been cut in half. And this is because people have had access to opportunities, access to markets, access to tools that have opened up new businesses and new opportunities. You know, a single PC allows a seamstress in South Africa to start a thriving small business. A smartphone becomes the basis of a whole new business for a cab driver in Malaysia. And a few workstations and a server form the foundation of what becomes a global enterprise for a small company starting out in Argentina. So affordable, accessible technology is really an enormous factor in what we see as the tremendous economic growth that's occurred in the last few decades, and it's opened doors for an enormous number of entrepreneurs. Now, the startup world is an exciting and interesting world. It's also the place where jobs are created. In fact, 70% of the new jobs that are created are coming from startups and young companies, up to 91% in some emerging countries. This is a really fascinating part of our economy that is not as well understood as it should be. The internet commerce, has grown to be about 20% of GDP in many developing countries or developed countries. And it's been an amazing last 15 years. If you imagine something was going to be 15% of the GDP, but it almost didn't exist in the mid-1990s, that's a pretty incredible growth curve. So entrepreneurship is really the engine of innovation and economic growth and job creation. Technology is the fuel that goes inside that engine. And I'm very proud of Dell's role in democratizing technology, making it more accessible and allowing the dreams and aspirations of our customers to come to life. These are fantastic companies. They're led by visionary leaders who have really changed the world. And you saw examples of that in the campaign that was just shown. We're proud to support those companies and proud to have today with us 3 that were featured in the campaign. Carley Roney, who is the co-founder of TheKnot. Jeff Housenbold, the CEO of Shutterfly. And Steve Kaufer, the co-founder and CEO of TripAdvisor. So please join me in welcoming them to the stage.
Thank you so much, Michael.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Hey there.
All right, so why don't we start by having each of you tell us a little bit about yourself and your business. Carley, you want to start off?
Okay, first in. I'm the co-founder, as he said, of Sxsw Group. We are most commonly known as TheKnot, and we are a media and technology company that goes across multi-platforms to actually take women through the $200 billion worth of purchase decisions they make around getting married, having a baby, and feathering their nest. So it's a big job.
Fantastic.
Jeff Housenbold, CEO of Shutterfly. And Shutterfly Inc. runs 7 premium lifestyle brands: Shutterfly, Tiny Prints, Wedding Paper Divas, Treat, Borrow Lenses, My Publisher, and This Life. And we're in the business of helping people connect and deepen their relationships with the people that matter most in their life, and helping to make the world a better place by telling your story and sharing life's joy. And we do that through our award-winning photo books, our cards and stationery, birth announcements, wedding invitations, the ability to manage and share your photos and your memories. We also have an enterprise business where we're helping Fortune 1000 companies communicate more effectively with their customers.
I'm Steve Kaufer, co-founder and CEO of TripAdvisor. 14 years ago, I wanted to have a great vacation, so I went online, but all I found was brochureware. When wanting that great vacation, what I really wanted was to hear from everyone out there about the great places to go, where to stay, where to eat, what to do when I got there. And so we formed TripAdvisor, and 150 million reviews and opinions later, in 20 plus different languages all around the globe, we really do help you plan and have that perfect trip.
Now, Steve, when a business starts out, it doesn't always become what you originally imagined. You know, when I started Dell, we actually started making storage systems for computers, and we figured out making the computers would actually be more valuable than the storage systems. Similarly, you started out with kind of a pretty different idea than you ended up with. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So, like many businesses, yours included, the business plan might have been half right, half wrong. So in our case, we actually started as a business-to-business product. We were going to license our travel search results to other folks who would have a consumer site. Necessity being the mother of invention. When we couldn't get anyone to actually take us up on that licensing offer, we pivoted. I think they call it a pivot now. I called it a run for my life back then. We found a new opportunity going directly to consumer, and the actual idea of user reviews wasn't actually part of that original business plan. It came later through a little bit of experimentation that someone had done on the site. Hey, what the heck would happen if we put a little button there that says, write your own review? And as they say, 150 million reviews and opinions later, something in that magic worked.
Kind of took off, and you weren't necessarily expecting that was going to occur, but you learn from your customers.
You learn from your customers, and you have to be willing to experiment at all points in your life cycle.
Now, Jeff, you've got a unique experience in kind of scaling a business, brought in by the founders. Tell us about your experience and kind of how is that entrepreneurial, but it's a little different than starting a business. You were brought in a pretty tough time and have done remarkable things with the company.
Thanks. You know, my definition of entrepreneurialism is really a mindset. It's people who think about new products or services, new markets, new ways of doing things, versus a founder who creates a company. And you need both, but you could be entrepreneurial and be an entrepreneur with inside of a large company, a medium-sized company, or a small company. And when I joined, I was the 4th CEO in 4 years. And my wife said, "You're quitting a safe job at eBay to go to a company where it seems like you get fired every year?" 9 years later, knock on wood, we've changed that, and we've grown the company from 50 million now approaching $1 billion in sales, and in 16 locations across 7 different brands. But the essence of what we do has been intrinsic to humankind since the beginning. Right? Cavemen were etching on cave walls, and people were telling stories around campfires, and Egyptians were using hieroglyphics, and French Renaissance Impressionists had different technology. So the technology has changed, but we're just helping people tell their story and share life's joy.
At the internet scale.
At internet scale, yeah.
Now, Carley, you've used customer insights to really evolve your business in many, many new directions. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, obviously, we started, really tackling this problem of planning a wedding, which, as anyone who has planned one knows, it is a big bear. And we really sort of grew around that. But one of the key areas that we did it, how we did it at the time also, was that community was a huge thing. So we had these massive numbers of message boards with brides sharing reviews and sharing information and sharing ideas. And by listening to them is ultimately how we did our experimentation and idea generation, was just by listening. So that's how we sort of grew the product in the first place. But then we had this, we call them a graduating class. Every year, 2 million brides would move on. And then they wouldn't leave. They had gotten sort of hooked on the community, and they would come into the message boards where people are talking about their dresses and be like, wait a second, I'm trying to buy a home. Has anyone have any tips on that? Or what about this neighborhood? And so we realized there was like a real need there to create a connection between these people going through this specific life stage as well. And that's where we formed The Nest, which is our second brand. And ultimately from that, obviously, because they're all newlyweds, you know what they're doing.
We know what happens.
We know what happens, and then we have The Bump. And that's been, I think it's the fastest growing baby website and app, and it's an amazing place where people are connecting. And it ultimately is, by listening and really deeply listening, it is how you come up with all of your best ideas, is through customer insights, what they need, what they want, how to change what you're doing. And it's certainly what everyone is trying to do now, but it was right there in front of us because of the early dawning of community as really being what the internet was about, communicating. So.
And we love Carley's business because when they get married, they need save the dates and wedding invitations. And then when they hit the bump, they need birth announcements and calendars and photo books. So
but before all that, there's honeymoon. Wait,
that's
absolutely,
right.
No. We're all one big happy family here.
And I suppose you need to run that on some servers.
And we need
Absolutely.
security and
That's
storage
right. Exactly.
and PCs.
No,
Yes.
This is all great. So Jeff, you were kind of in the cloud before the cloud existed or was cool. And you got something like 22 billion images now in the cloud. Tell us a little bit about that. And you were doing this before it really became a thing to be doing.
Yeah, I teased my board that we're going to rename Shutterfly to be SaaS Big Cloud Big Data Inc. and our stock price will go up. But in 1999, when we pioneered online photo sharing, it was hard to convince people to take the pictures and put them up on our server. And what was the real inflection point was they wanted to share it, and emailing these large files, the ISPs were blocking those emails from getting to their relatives and friends seeing their pictures. And so the notion was, put it up on Shutterfly, we'll send a link, and then that link will point at that picture. And that was kind of the breakthrough that we had in 1999. And since then, we've been scaling. We now are approaching 100 petabytes of data. And we have 22 billion of our customers' precious memories, and they're safe in the cloud in 3 different locations. So should a fire or a flood, natural disaster, a hard drive crash, something happen, your memories are safe with us. And to do that, we've had to go through generation after generation of technological advances in storage, in bandwidth, in security, because you're trusting us with your most precious memories, and we've never deleted an image, nor do we downsample, compress, or charge. Free, unlimited storage. And Dell's been a great partner as we've come from a little company with a couple thousand customers to 65, 70 million users last year and protecting their precious memories.
That's great. Now, Steve, you got a background in engineering. How has that sort of impacted the culture of TripAdvisor, and how do you lead the company?
Correct, I have a computer science degree, and I just love the fact that I'm able to look at the business problem, the business opportunity in running a company with a little bit more insight perhaps about what's possible on the engineering side. And so whether it's taking a spec that might be super complicated that, hey, maybe there's a nifty way we can accelerate the development by taking a shortcut here or there, or acknowledging a problem just isn't going to be able to be solved by the computers and the engineering team, I can whittle out the stuff that we don't, I can match the priority to the capabilities much faster than when it goes through an ordinary process. It also allows me to have so much confidence in our engineering team because I know what they do, so that I can say, look, it's a super fast team, we release daily or weekly, there's no regressions, you test what you code, and it just happens like clockwork. And maybe because of the CS degree, they can't really say it's not possible because been there, done that, I know it's possible.
They can't sandbag their estimates with you either,
It's
right?
pretty hard to do that. Not a challenge I have with the team, I have to say.
That's a good one.
Carley, you've been
Yes.
a part of our Dell Women's Entrepreneur Network for several years now, and you've been a great mentor to many women that have gone into starting new businesses. What are some of the special challenges and opportunities you think women face, and what are the sort of key things that need to be addressed in the future from your perspective?
I love this question, actually. It's my favorite question on the lineup. I know it looks like you're shucking and jiving, but he has a list. And no, this is an amazing one, because I think actually what is critical here, the number one thing that I think will make more female entrepreneurship in this country is more women engineers. I think particularly at this moment in time, yes, at this moment in time when 85% of the buying decisions in this country are made by women, and women are the world's most avid communicators, and most of what is out there in technology are either ways to buy things or improve the buying things or communicating. Women should be the one making these things, but I think they have the ideas, but they don't have that like best friend that they can sit and jam on some code with, because there just aren't enough girls around who are engineers, and I think that would change everything.
And how do you do that? I mean, how do you make it cool and interesting to girls in 4th and 5th grade to stick with math and science?
To me, it's all about middle school and making it cool to be into these type of things. And it's something I actually care a lot about and work a lot in, because I think it's that, it starts there, and then ultimately also, I think for women entrepreneurs, it still is harder to get funding. I think, we have to be triply good. Like, we not only have to have a really good idea, but need to know our numbers inside and out, and there's no passes given. So I think we're there, but it doesn't help that most of the venture capitalists aren't women, so it's just more girl power all around and more deep technology in the middle schools. I do believe that. And everyone out there who has a chance as a female to volunteer in a school to get girls excited about technology, please take it, because it means something different when it's coming from a cool girl who says, look, I've made this amazing career for myself. It's really fun. You can build stuff. It's exciting. It can change your life. So please do that.
I'm on the board of Carnegie Mellon, the #1 computer science school, and even there we only have 13% or so of engineers in computer science being female. So the more we could do that, it's good for everybody, so I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, it's huge.
Now, all of the companies on the stage here, except for ours, are public.
You mean you don't want to hang out with Carl Icahn anymore?
All done with that. Thanks very much. So, tell us about your experience there. What have you learned? What's the right time to think about going public? If you had to do it all over again, what would you perhaps do differently? Steve, why don't you start off?
It's a great question that so many entrepreneurs are lucky enough to face, and it's hard to say that there's a right answer for each. We sold TripAdvisor in 2004. We had clearly made something successful, but we didn't go public. We sold, and we actually got to grow as part of a very successful public company. So yes, we sold too early from that angle, but in terms of building a great company, it was probably really nice, with the benefit of hindsight that for the next 7 years, we got to grow within the safety of a big public company, without the external scrutiny, without being distracted by any of the Wall Street stuff, so that the site kept growing, the company kept growing, we kept doing our acquisitions until we finally spun out independently at the end of 2011. At that point, the company's pretty big, pretty established, and it's as if we had waited for our own IPO such that we could go to the market and say, hey, I don't have to worry about my stock price next quarter, Because we are big, because I'm looking for investors who are in it for the long run. Listen carefully to how we paint the vision. If you believe that, please be a shareholder. If not, that's okay. I didn't have any investors that were looking at a lockup period expiring in a few months. I just didn't have to worry about any of that. So now we get to approach from our very long-term perspective, do what's right for the company, and I spend not that much time on the road as a public company CEO. That suits my lifestyle, at least.
That's great.
You know, we were 7 years old when we went public, and now we're 14 years old. So we've had half our history as a private company, half as a public company. And like everything in life, there's pros and cons. And you know, for us being a consumer company, being public has heightened our awareness. The press wants to talk to you more. You're on CNBC, you're invited to be on the Today Show, or you know, our partnership with Ellen DeGeneres. Those kind of things happened in part because we were public. I think that's important. The second thing for us was because there's been over 1,100 venture-backed companies in our space, and so many of them have failed, people are trusting their memories with us. They perceive that a public company is safer than a private. That's not necessarily the case, but the perception is there, and that helped us being a public, strong company. It also gave us access to capital that we were able to use for expansion and acquisitions. What I think has changed, though, today there's many more paths to liquidity and access to different parts of the capital markets and different ways to obtain that. The reporting structure, the short-term quarterly focus, even though we take a long-term view, you still have to manage to quarterly numbers, and it changes a little bit of the mentality of the company, even if you try not to. So that's not the greatest thing. And then with the rules and the regulation, and because I'm the only public company amongst my competitive set, they get to see all my data and I'll get to see theirs. And so, you know, it takes time away from focusing on customer, culture, strategy, and execution, and it's kind of burdensome, but in the totality, I think it has been a positive thing for Shutterfly.
And Carley, what's been your experience?
Well, fortunately, I don't have to do any of the dirty stuff related to being a public company. All the hard stuff is done by David Liu, who's in the audience, who is our CEO and took the company public in 1999. I mean, for us, it was an incredible marketing event. You know, we were this sort of little young company in New York that really had, you know, sort of this big vision and was, you know, really on the path to making money. So it was important for us from that front. And I think that it was ultimately the way that we could raise the $35 million we needed to expand the company. I mean, for us, it wasn't that much access, as you say. There wasn't another pathway. Right, it was simply capital. But you do look at it now, and you look at other companies, and it does seem like kind of the denouement for everyone. But it really is a question of whether you're trying to get out and have a personal liquidity event, or whether you're just trying to get the capital to grow your business. I think you have to think about it, you know, very differently, because as you say, there's stuff that comes with it, particularly the visibility of everything that you're doing. It makes it harder.
And the key is it's just a day in the life of the company's history. It's not the end, right? And that's so important to make sure you orientate your employees that, you know, it's a day in the life. It's an important one. It's a milestone. Celebrate it. But let's not be looking at the stock price all day long. We got to, you know, continue to innovate and serve our customers well. And we set that tone very early on when I got there, and we went public 18 months later, and it was amazing how we had a party and we went back to work.
Now, Carley, a few years ago, you opened up in China, which is a enormous market, 1.4 billion people, but has its own daunting set of challenges and unique circumstances. What inspired you to do that? What's been your experience?
What were we thinking? No, it's actually been.
We like China.
You love China.
Sure, yeah.
No, I know. Everywhere I was there, I was telling Michael in the back, everywhere I was, there was beautifully well-placed Dell ads in the big fancy new airport, in the fanciest neighborhoods. All my staff there only will accept Dell laptops because it's the right brand to be carrying around, particularly when you work for an American company. It's a fascinating opportunity. People say about China, it's 5 times the opportunity and 5 times the risk. And there are very few companies who have been successful, at least internet companies have gone over, who haven't been crushed by a local competition. We have a distinct advantage, and that's where we sort of looked at it. Here is a culture where, we have 2 million weddings a year in America. They have 10 million, and they don't have a tradition Like they literally, because of sort of communism and a lack of religion, there really isn't much there, and they really want to have an event and a ritual around this. And so there was like a big, huge hole, an open playing field, and they of course love brands. I mean, the one thing to really, as everyone has seen in every paper in the world, they love brands. And so we suddenly realized we, for once, for an internet company, in this space, had a distinct competitive advantage that actually had the ability to make us successful. So we went in as the only American brand coming to help you plan a Western wedding. And we had all of the sort of assets from America, which ultimately informed, and we had more people in San Francisco planning Chinese American weddings than in all of China. So we could kind of go over and be like, look, here's how you can blend Chinese and Western traditions. And it's been fascinating. We have an entirely local staff there, which we think is important to really, there's a culture of work, and you have to really understand the market that you're dealing with. But the most, I think, exciting thing for us has actually been, we just spent quite a few months there, is how much they're in the future. Like we were like, oh, we'll go over and spread our internet company to China. You come back, you're like, oh my gosh, we have so much to learn from them. And we came running back to America because we're looking at the post-PC world in Asia. Like in China, their entire lives are on their mobile devices. And that is really fascinating way to look at the world. They just have absolutely no use for a laptop except at work. And it's really helped us move forward in our thinking about how we are a mobile-centric company globally. And it's exciting, but it's a huge and big challenge, but we're having a really good time doing it.
So in China, you're an American brand selling a Western experience with Chinese influence.
Right, but the business model is also entirely different. Like you can't just take your business model and plop it down there. The way business is done is totally different, so even how you have to function there is different. But also just the media, for example, doesn't work in the same way there. And we are, originally a media company in America. Transactions will be much more viable there because they are 100% on mobile devices and they haven't, gone the other pathway yet. So, but yes, we've had to reinvent the business model, but with the brand at the core.
And how about India? I know weddings are a big deal in India.
We're really busy with China, so, but India is certainly, makes our toes wiggle. But yeah, we have enough of a big job in China. Enough excitement.
Steve, your business is one of the kind of best examples in the world of network effects, and fantastic property in terms of your customers are doing the work for you, right? And so this becomes more valuable every second that your users are engaged. And now we have social media sort of turbocharging that whole phenomenon. How is that changing the network effects and your business, and what's sort of the global aspect of this as we have now billions of connected users all over the world?
Great question, and it is so nice to be able to use these network effects to our advantage. The whole concept of the user-generated content. We'll finish up tonight, go home, spend the weekend with family, kids, come back. And even though nobody at TripAdvisor has been working, the site is actually that much better. It's that much more useful for everyone. More photos uploaded, more reviews, more room tips. It's actually a better product even though no engineer was working on it. That's a fantastic opportunity. That gets better in every market, right? In every different language, more and more people are uploading reviews, more and more tips coming in. So you combine that with the Facebook integration or the Twitter references, and not only can you share to an audience on TripAdvisor, but you can also tweet it, you can also like it, you can also post your review on the other networks, which in turn exposes the brand, not from us advertising the brand, but from your friends saying, hey, check this thing out. And similarly, if you come to TripAdvisor today, we're delighted to show you not only the wisdom of the crowd, hey, what's the most popular hotel in London, but hey, based upon your Facebook friends, here is the most popular hotel from your friend network. here's where you should eat in this town that you've never been to before because 3 of your friends have eaten there. Or here's where you should not eat because we have all the pluses and all the minuses. So you take the leverage that we get by more and more people coming to the site, more and more people writing or taking their first trip based upon our information, wanting then to pay it forward a little bit, so write the review for the next person. Why on TripAdvisor? Because that's where they got the information in the first place, so they want to give back to the site, to the audience, and there's a little ego involved. They want to write the review where it's going to be read the most often. I'm sure you guys, anyone else in a network-generated site has the same concept of, great, I can expose my opinions to more and more people. Well, more reviews fuels more traffic, fuels more experiences, fuels more reviews, and the model just keeps growing. Again, it's essentially replicated for each new language that we go and tackle.
So you have the easiest job.
Yeah, I was going to say thanks.
I guess I could take that one.
Automatically. That sounds great.
I found my tour guide for Shangri-La, China on TripAdvisor. The best part about it, she emails me afterwards. So I hope you'll write a TripAdvisor review for me. Here's the link. It's just a beautiful, seamless process. She was amazing, by the way.
Your work for you.
Absolutely. She was fantastic.
That's great. Jeff, you've transformed Shutterfly quite a lot over the last several years. How do you anticipate opportunities? How do you capitalize on them? What lessons have you learned there?
Yeah, when I joined the company, 4x6 prints, which was the holdover from the old film world, was 68% about revenue. And today it's about 4% about revenue. And I think the key to innovation was
We've gone to 5x7 now? Is that
yeah. No, but all prints is 4%.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. It's 4.1 by 6.2. The key has been a couple of things. One is I was my high school, college, and yearbook photographer, and my wife and I spent $1,600 on Shutterfly the year before I joined the company. So I was a huge customer. And so many of our employees, because 80% of our customers are women, so many of our employees are women and users and customers. The employees have so many ideas, that's one. But more important is we have so many different venues where we hear from our customers because our net promoter scores are higher than Nike and BMW, and our customers love us to the point where 75% of our revenue is from repeat customers, right? And they care so much, they're constantly giving us ideas. And the key is to take where you think the world's going by looking at technology and talking to partners and inventing internally and listening to your customers and trying to marry those together. Because often, the old story that if you Henry Ford asked his customers what they wanted, they would have said a faster horse, not a car. So you can't just listen to your customers, but you got to take that as input. And so we're constantly trying new things and trying to fail fast, right? And everything from the physical form factor to the thousands and thousands of designs we create, to the richness of our photo books, to the creation paths that we do, because we're such a unique e-commerce company in that our customers build their own products. And that's why we're the most profitable public e-commerce company, because we're not selling a standardized product that you could buy on Amazon or Walmart.com. And so our customers are so invested in making this, and they're constantly giving us feedback. And if we put it in front of them, we have so much users that we can tell very quickly if it's going to be successful. I think the hard part is when you create something and it's okay but not great, what do you do with it? Do you keep it out there because it costs you money in mind share and merchandising and marketing and bandwidth and code base, growing? Do you kill it because it's never going to be huge and alienate the thousands or few million customers using it? Or do you leave it out there and let it decay and just milk it? And so you got to make kind of portfolio decisions all the time. But I think being such a big customer has helped me see the vision of where I think the world's going as it relates to sharing their memories. And it's the employees are so innovative and entrepreneurial that it's helped us stay ahead of very, very large companies in this space like Walmart, Walgreens, HP, Kodak, Facebook, Apple, Sony, Yahoo, AOL. Everyone wants to be in the photo business, but yet we're the only one really monetizing it because we're going after memories and women, not young kids taking selfies that they don't realize that there's mortality and you should protect those memories. Sorry to the young kids in the audience.
That's right.
You will get engaged and married and have kids.
Now, all of your businesses are IT driven and web driven in one form or another. and the rate of change in terms of the molecular ingredients that go into that is pretty rapid in terms of lightweight programming languages, networks, all sorts of new things happening, capacity, bandwidth, resolution, you know, et cetera. What are the things that excite you about that, scare you about that? You know, security challenges. I mean, what keeps you up at night? You know, in terms of the changing ingredients of technology, or is that just not something you think about? You think about other things. Steve?
I'd say for TripAdvisor, it's got to be the emergence of the smartphone. It's this incredibly brilliant thing in your pocket traveling with you all the time. So the phase one, if you will, is, yeah, I want to be able to I want to help travelers be able to plan the trip using their phone, and it's a different form factor and all the rest that we all know about how to do that better. But in travel, hey, wait a minute, isn't there a phase two? Isn't there the possibility that I can take this computer in my pocket and turn it into my personal travel guide, my real-time assistant when I'm in destination, when I'm actually walking down the streets of the city I'm in? Right now, hey, you use TripAdvisor, you can hit the Near Me Now button. We have 80 million downloads, people that can use the app today to find information about where they are, get a great restaurant recommendation near where they're standing. That's good. That's quite helpful. It's quite better than lugging around the old guidebook or calling home or something. But what's next? And so the ability, in our view, to be able to take that experience and turn it into, oh my gosh, I'm having an incredible trip because I can get access to stuff that I never knew existed out on the web right now, right when I want it. Hey, I'm looking at a statue. What's the statue? What is this? What's the history of it? Who sculpted it? When? How can I find that out as if I had my personal tour guide right next to me? Take that through your whole vacation. The beauty is, I actually believe almost all of the technology pieces are already there. It's not actually requiring much new by way of device. A little bit more in speech recognition would be helpful, a little bit more here and there, but you got the camera, you got the GPS, you got the internet connectivity. I can give it all, but TripAdvisor or anyone else, we haven't assembled it into that service yet. And I really do think that that's going to be huge over the next several years.
Best barbecue in Austin on TripAdvisor.
That part will actually probably work pretty well. However, hey, what's the history of this beautiful painting I'm looking at in the Austin Fine Arts Museum?
That's great.
How do we get there?
So for us, there are a couple of themes. One is data, right? This whole notion of big data. But we're launching with our 7th brand, This Life. It's a aggregation of your photos across all of your devices, regardless of operating system or platform. It works on an iOS, Android, or a Kindle device, on a tablet, smartphone, or a PC. And so wherever you go in the Housenbold family, I can access my 274,000 photos with visual search. So I could click on my...
Does anybody else have 274,000 photos, or just Jeff here?
What are you guys doing? Thank you, sign her up. Free photo books for life right there. She also happens to be a professional photographer, so that helps. But everyone, the proliferation of pictures, and it doesn't cost anything anymore, but how many of you are filling up the hard drives, if you will, on these things, and you need to get them off and up into the cloud? Well, we're able to tell the location, we have facial tagging, favoriting, we're pulling in social comments and social tags, and we're creating a visual search engine, so I could click on any of my 3 boys, Granddad and Austin, and it'll go through my 272,000 and find the 400 great ones. Then it'll tell me if the photo's in focus, are people in it, are their eyes open, and are they smiling? And then it'll tell me these are the 220 best, and it'll automatically make a photo book for you.
But what if you don't have any photos left after that filter criteria, right?
Then take Granddad out of
it.
And, or come see me for photography lessons. And so big data and using all of that and like being able to customize the web experience, the direct mail experience, the email experience, the product selection. So big data, I think, is one. Second is storage. So thankfully for us, with 100 petabytes of data, storage has come down 70% in the last 7 years. And now we're with Dell's help, we're making our own storage bricks, and we've been able to reduce our storage costs and drive free cash flow up. So storage is a really important thing for us. And what's nice about Shutterfly, regardless if you're on a BlackBerry or a Nokia or a Samsung or a Dell or whatever phone you're using, as that technology changes, you'll still be able to access your content because it's up in our cloud. And then I would say mobile is really important to us too. People are taking more and more pictures with this device, and so we've launched 7 different mobile applications in the last 14 months across tablets and smartphones, and helping people do more with their memories. So those are some of the key challenges. And then there are just bad people out there. You said something to me yesterday in New York that there's billions and billions of users in the world now, and even if you have 1% of those people are bad people, you have millions of bad people, right? And so companies like Dell and others are building software and security because there's denial of service attacks, and there's hacking, there's governments, there's our own government, there's lots of people trying to attack your systems. And so we've built really strong security, but it's an arms race, and so I think that's an important theme for all of us.
For me, I spend most of my time being excited by mobile. I think it truly is going to, we've only been able to tackle so many of the problems we set out to tackle, and the last mile of our experience or of a bride is actually done offline. And so it limited our ability to really help and also build a business around that last mile. Well, I think with the sort of dawn of all that information that we have, whether it's our user reviews of every wedding vendor in America, the ability to communicate with brides, the ability to directly communicate back and forth with one of your vendors, and ultimately the ability to transact, is really going to ignite the next round in development of our organization. And so it is a thing that is absolutely the most exciting to us and very powerful and can change the lives of our members. So.
Great. Well, now I think we're going to open this up for questions. We have some questions coming in from the Twitter feed, and I think those are going to be coming up here shortly. Let's see. We have the first question.
I can read it.
I can read it.
Okay.
The question
I couldn't read it if it was here, but I can read it there.
It's for me, and it's, Michael, how are you changing Dell's culture now that the company has gone private? Our company grew very quickly, and grew to $60 billion business. It was a lot of fun. And as the business changed, we set out to really say, okay, what are the new challenges and opportunities that our customers are presenting us with? And it took us beyond products. It took us to a vertical understanding of the customers, and we've discovered that we need more than just products to solve the problems. We need services, we need solutions, a lot more in software and systems management and security to help protect from some of the bad folks out there. And so we've been investing very heavily in that. As a private company, we can sort of do all those things a bit faster. We can embrace some more of the risk that entrepreneurs and founders love as people who start companies. And we can change our time horizon of focus a bit to be more medium and long term. In terms of our principles and values and beliefs, those don't change. Those are the same whether you're public or private. We still have shareholders. We just have a lot fewer of them, mostly me, but it makes it a lot simpler that way. But it's certainly fun being private. So let's see, next question. What was the toughest moment in your career as an entrepreneur?
Today, last week, last month.
Yeah, right.
Steve?
I'd probably go way back to the very early days when TripAdvisor was hardly a success. In fact, we hadn't really made our first dollar yet. So we were looking at a licensing agreement with a big company that would cover about half the burn rate for the company. So that was a really big step to get to that profitability, so I wouldn't be quite under the gun. But it came with these conditions. In this particular case, it was a license to use our technology forever, including the potential of building a competitive product. So I was kind of faced with the, hey, this could be a company-saving decision. If I don't take this, we might go out of business. Or it could be a biggest regret decision ever in my life, because I am now going to be building a great big company and literally giving a copy of that company to somebody else every single month. I was tortured on it, and I woke up one morning and said, you know, in that latter situation, I just could not wake up in the morning and go to work. Therefore, I could not license our IP forevermore to the company. And it was just with the clarity of one morning saying, I wouldn't want to work in that company, therefore, no, and we'll either survive or not on our own.
Anyone else have a tough moment they want to share?
You go through journeys, ups and downs, right? And you always have inflection points. And I think that, should you do this deal? Should you buy this company? Should you sell the company? Should you take an outside capital? Should you launch this product or not? But, one of the inflection points for us was this notion of all of our competitors were stuck doing 4x6 prints, and it was commoditizing. And how do we pivot from thinking of ourselves as an online photo finisher to playing a game we could win at? And that was, in the early days when I got to Shutterfly, and we said, you know what, we're really in the business of storytelling and social expression. And that redefinition of who we are changed our entire product roadmap, our marketing communications, our innovation pipeline, the way we went to market, and it forced us, because of that necessity, to diversify our product assortment much, much quicker than the industry. And that's what has allowed us to now be the market leader and stay ahead of them. So that was an important inflection point.
Next question is about balancing work and personal life. And I'd say from my perspective, I think the best decision I ever made was to ask Susan to marry me. She's here in the room.
Hey, Susan.
And one of the things I discovered was, after a certain number of hours, you're just not as productive, and the fun factor goes way down, right? And so you have to sort of define your own balance, and if you're fortunate enough to be in charge, you can kind of do that a little more easily. But I think if you love what you do, it's not really a hard thing to do, right? You're engaged in it. It's fun. You can't be in perfect balance at every given moment, right? When I go to Asia and do those crazy trips, I'm not in balance, right? That's just not how it works. But you can work hard, you can play hard, have time to recharge and rest, and then go at it, once again.
Yeah. I think, I too married my best friend, and she's been a godsend in understanding that being a CEO is not a job, it's a way of life, right? That when the phone rings at 2 in the morning because there's an issue in the manufacturing plant and they want to talk to the boss, that you got to do that, or you have to step out of doing something else. But I think, so having that flexibility to operate depending on what life's thrown at you. But then on the flip side, knowing what are absolutes. And when you're doing it, be present. So if you're at the violin concert, the smartphone goes, on silent, and you're focused and you're there and you're present. And so figuring out the things that if you miss, you're going to regret in life, and making sure you commit to those, particularly when it relates to family and kids, that has been important in that balance. But you're always on, always accessible in today's world, and it's a way of life, it's not a job.
I mean, David and I are parents to 3 children and our 3 brands, and I always call it work-life imbalance. It just makes it easier. Like, people say the phrase and I hear it differently. And I think that, I tell entrepreneurs, particularly women, because I think it's one of the biggest challenges when you realize you're coming into the part of your life where you might want to have kids and have a family, that you will give something up. Like, there is no one out there who's having everything they want. There are huge periods of time where I just simply never got to see my friends. I either saw my work and my friends there, or I was home with my family. And there were aspects of my life that completely dropped away. If you could see me more closely, you'll see I haven't had a manicure in like 9 months. Those aspects of your life
neither.
Completely. I don't even believe it about you. So I think that you just have to realize you're giving something up, but what you're getting back is extraordinary. Like, being an entrepreneur, having that opportunity to kind of be your own boss and to live it and to love it is an amazing trade-off. But there are times where you just have to, I would say, like, I play hooky with my kids, 1 or 2 times a year where I just like, nope, not going to work today, neither are you to school, or things like that, where you know that you have a line and your kids know it too, is really important that ultimately they come first, so.
I think the only thing I might add is that being an entrepreneur, and I've done it a couple of times now, it's just a lot of time and effort and work, but there's nothing wrong with, hey, and I'm coming home and I am turning off the cell phone, I'm not going online. There's just nothing that is going to matter so much in the hours between 6 and 9 that can't wait till I go back online at 9:30. My kids are in bed asleep at 9:30, and my wife knows that I work a lot. That's just kind of a given, but when I'm off, I actually stay off, and she appreciates the undivided attention during that time, and then says, oh well, and for the rest of the evening.
Great. Next question is, are there entrepreneurs or startups that the folks on the panel here are taking notice of?
I'll do a shout out to a company I'm on the board of.
Sure.
I'm currently wearing a Rent the Runway dress. It's founded by 2 women, Harvard girls, and I'm very excited by what they're doing. Is basically solving the problem of having an awesome closet for women, and we're calling it Building the Closet in the Cloud. And I just think the attention they have put to it, I'm sort of impassioned by their belief that they can change this huge habit. And they built an amazing company in New York, so I pay attention to them.
Yeah, so instead of specific companies, talk about, I think, 2 key trends. One of them is this ed tech that's going on. Mm-hmm. And so I grew up on welfare and food stamps, and the change in my life was the access to education. You have to work hard, you have to get good grades, you have to have luck in life, but in America, you can get an education, right? And so I joined the board of Chegg because of that, because they're really creating the next generation way in which students kind of have better outcomes. But I think ed tech is just such an interesting area right now. And then similarly, what's happening in bio information and technology, in the way we're capturing patients' information, getting to better outcomes, helping lesser developed nations who don't have the same resources have a better quality of life for their citizens, and being able to solve some of the world's greatest medical needs through this notion of crowdsourcing of information and experimentation across the scientific and medical community. I think technology is dramatically changing those 2 industries, and the thing I would love to see is the government help, not hurt, the pace of change in both medicine and in education.
That's an optimistic thought. Help from the government.
Yes, I'm a dreamer.
Or stay out of the way.
Right.
I mean, what's going on in the educational field with the internet is just staggering. You had mentioned that in the opening words, but just no matter what neighborhood your kid is growing up in, or what country, if there's access, if there's the rudimentary internet access, there's the means to learn an incredible amount, and whether that's in the tech field or others, just did not exist 10 years ago, let alone further back. And that's the biggest leveler you can ever name is education.
Yeah. So my kids, I'm sure your kids too, they have tablets in school. and they're doing their math homework on a tablet. And I was like, that's kind of crazy, right? And then as I dug in and understood, well, the teacher can see which problems they got wrong, where they were pausing, what aspects of it did they just get this decimal one side away, or didn't they understand the concept? And then they're tailoring the in-class counseling, if you will, on a one-to-one basis. So the use of technology is going to just continue to explode, and what we need to do is have the teacher unions and the establishment and the government realize that they need to change to be a positive force in our children's lives, not just to protect their entrenched ways of doing things.
Optimize.
I'm running for Congress, people.
I was going to say.
And you know, technology can play a really key role in linking the parents, the student, and the teacher, and that's a you know, valuable opportunity.
That's it.
Yes.
Next question coming in from the Twitter feed here is, what is more important, product, service, or experience?
That's like air, food, and water right
Yeah.
there. You have to have it all, and you have to have product market fit, you have to be addressing a large addressable market, you have to be solving a problem that's sufficiently large and painful enough that people will pay you for it. Your solution has to be differentiated. You need a lot of luck, but the product, the service, the experience, all of those touch points with your customer culminate in what your brand equity is. And when you fall down on any one of those, you run the risk of you being passed by from your competitors offering a more comprehensive, holistic approach.
Although I would say, I mean, I would sort of add into that, when I look out at, there were plenty of people doing what we did in the beginning, and I don't know, exactly how any of these areas compared at that time, but I say what set us apart was actually brand. The idea of understanding what you stand for as a company, and having a certain authenticity about that. I mean, it combines all those things, as you say, but like I think that people need to think about brand as more than a logo and a color. It is really, it's a feeling that you want your members or users or customers to have, and to really care deeply about that. And I think oftentimes it gets glossed over in a line of like, oh, we got the features, it ultimately comes down to so much more than that to build an authentic customer experience that will test the time of competitors or times when you mess up in your product or experience. So.
Yeah, and not just a Dell plug here, I'm not a paid spokesperson, but if you look at your new brand campaign, right, you're not talking about bits and bytes and atoms and speeds and megahertz and storage. You're talking about how we all have dreams as business people, and just like you did in a dorm room, right? And it takes a fortitude and a dumb luck, right? And an ability to tell all the naysayers you're wrong. But what Dell's doing is helping companies be successful. And that the essence of the brand that permeates through that new television campaign, I think, has authenticity to it and emotional and aspirational components that go beyond the rational and functional. And I think it's elevated the Dell brand to new heights.
There's a powerful theme in all of your stories about customer centricity and listening and learning from customers, and that's certainly a wellspring of insight and benefit that is accrued to each of your companies. But you've been able to be crafty and sort of taking advantage of it, because there are plenty of competitors, and business models are relatively transparent. Things happen quickly, and you have to be able to turn those insights into decisions faster, and that's sort of what defines the winning companies versus the ones who aren't doing as quite as well. So this has been a fantastic panel. Let's thank our panelists, and
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.